Hi, this is Brad with Baker County Trash Pickup. Oh boy, did I mess up on that last video. So if you don't know, I made a video talking about how I felt like there was a client who was trying to maybe rip me off, potentially scam me. And so this entire video is going to be talking about the lessons that I've learned from that and the things that I'm going to be doing differently moving forward. It was one of those scenarios where if one person says you're a jerk, you can ignore them. If two people say you're a jerk, it might be something to think about. If three people say you're a jerk, you might be a jerk. And I think there were probably 40 of you that were saying that I was a jerk on that one. So I completely accept I didn't do the right thing. And that's what this video is about. So I don't want to rehash the whole situation. You can watch the video for that. But when the video aired, apparently somebody recognized that house that I showed in the video. They knew who lived there, and they sent a message to the person who lives there, who was my ex-client, and said, "Hey, have you seen this?" So my wife and I are going out about our business. We're running some trash pickup errands on Saturday, and we get a call from this ex-client who starts explaining the situation. She sounded agitated, but she was never mean. A few hours later, she sent me a text message and said that she would like if I took the video down. And I didn't see that until a few hours later. But at that point, she had already posted on a local Facebook group with like 15,000 people about what had happened. As a side point, that someone would go on a public forum with 15,000 people and complain about a YouTube video that had 2,000 views that I was putting their personal information on the web. The irony of that is not lost on me. When she made that post, I saw it within a few minutes and posted basically a rehash of the video, all my points. Hey, thank you so much, ma'am. I appreciate you posting this and giving me a chance to explain. Here's all the dates and the times and everything. I also explained why we make videos on the business. It's not to humiliate anyone, and then posted a link to the video for anyone who wanted to see it. The people who watched the video asked her some of the same questions. Well, what about the email you saw and didn't reply to? In none of those responses did she say, "Oh, I never did see it," or "someone else opened the email." It was always kind of like a, "Well, I was busy and we were going through a lot," which could be true. For folks who didn't watch the video, right off the rip, what most of them did not like was just the fact that I took pictures of her home and put it online, which isn't illegal, well within my rights, but that doesn't mean people liked it. I live in a very conservative, rural area where privacy is extremely important, so that bothered a lot of people who didn't know all the facts. Even some who did know the facts, they still didn't feel like that was the right thing to do. So moving forward, I'm not showing any identifying information at all. And I thought I was good. I thought I was golden because I had removed names, I had blocked out addresses, but just the house itself and the background was enough for someone to recognize it, to reach out to that person, and then for her to get mad at me and, put that blow up post on Facebook. So that's one thing moving forward. I will not put any personally identifying information at all, and I won't even post supporting photos. I viewed it as, these images are my way to explain to you what I did and to show you that I'm not just making this story up. Other people viewed it as, he's putting pictures of this poor woman's house online to, humiliate her because she didn't pay for her service or whatever. The other one, in terms of communication, we're going to start using dates moving forward. This is something that I'm going to try very hard not to spend a lot of time on because, again, I don't want to seem like I'm trying to prove myself right. She messaged me Monday at 1 a.m. before Monday's trash pickup and said, "This is the last week we will need trash pickup." There were so many people who were convinced that because she said this was the last week she needed pickup, that for some reason I should have gone back the next Monday. It just goes to show that if you're saying things like this week or next week, people can be wrong about what this or next week is. I'm going to remove all the ambiguity when it comes to cancellations. Hey, Miss Client, you've got it. October 21st is going to be your last service. We're going to pick up the cans October 22nd or 23rd. We're going to give you a refund for the pickup for October 28th. Another change is that refunds will not be processed until cans are collected. That was something a lot of you folks in the comments had to say. And yeah, that's absolutely a valid point. We won't process refunds until we've got the cans back. so that if we do need to do another week of pickup, we still have the money. And then there was a large group of you folks who, and I really appreciate these comments because I felt like a lot of you were very considerate and polite to me. And you said, I see where you're coming from, Brad, and I don't necessarily disagree, but here's something to consider. Even though you might have been right, this is what she could have been going through. And it was all really great feedback. And I don't want to sound like a dismissive jerk by saying in my communication with her after posting that video, I'm fairly certain my original assessment was correct because her story changed between the phone call that she placed to myself and then the post that she put on Facebook. Eventually, she ended up taking the post down. I don't know what prompted that, but that doesn't mean that any of you who posted those kind of comments were wrong. I think that is something that's a character flaw in me where, and I've seen it several times in this trash endeavor where I'm taking actions that maybe they are intentional, maybe they're not, but I'm taking them personally and viewing them as an intentional slight against myself. And a lot of you folks were very sage in your advice that that's really not the best outlook. And I agree 100%. But, I am going through this thing and saying, yeah, she tried to get a week away from me. And maybe she did, and maybe the evidence looks like that's the case. But, if she did, so what? Just let it go. And now the flip side of that is that I make YouTube videos, right? So for me not to talk about that, I don't see that happening. But what I could have done was made it more sanitized. So maybe there was a little less emotion involved. Maybe there was a little less personal information involved. And I could have made it more abstract for a business teaching thing. So those are some of the things that I have learned and I'm going to change moving forward. I would also like to address some very valid points that you folks made and maybe the reasons why I won't be doing those things. One thing that was mentioned several times was the fact that she never asked for a refund, but I gave it to her anyway, so that was my fault. The idea that someone would prepay for services and then I would keep that money if they don't use those services, I'm not saying there are no businesses that do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that in your business. For me, that is completely out of line with what I consider a good business to do. Like if somebody paid for trash pickup for December, and then December 2nd, they say, hey, I actually don't need this trash pickup because, we're going to make our teenage son do it, or because we're moving, or whatever. The idea that I would say, well, tough luck, I'm keeping your money for the whole month. No, that doesn't make any sense to me. Aside from that one thing about partial refunds, I think the only piece of advice that was given consistently that I am not going to follow through with was, Brad, you should take down this video. I completely accept the fact that a lot of you, that video left a bad taste in your mouth, and I apologize for it. I've learned a lot of valuable lessons because of your feedback, but at least as far as taking the video down, I simply cannot do that. And there's a few reasons why. One, I don't want to. I have never been someone over the 7 years I've been doing this that has tried to sanitize my videos to make me look like the best person in the world. I don't hide my mistakes. I talk about the business decisions I make that are terrible. I've talked about times I've lost hundreds of dollars from stupid decisions. I don't care about looking good on the internet. And I'm not trying to say that in like a militant, defiant way, like, I don't care what you think of me. It's not like that. Me having to look good in front of people I don't know on the internet or even in front of my local community, if I make a mistake, that's not what's important to me. The goal for this channel, the goal of these videos has always been to entertain and educate. If I take the video down, I can't entertain you, and more importantly, I can't educate people who are looking for business knowledge when it comes to situations like this. So if I make this mistake about how I've made this video and how I've put these pictures online and the wording that I've used and all this other stuff, and then I just go and yank that down because I say, oof, I don't want to look bad online. How does that, one, entertain any of you folks? It doesn't. But more importantly, it doesn't leave any type of educational opportunity for people coming behind to say, wow, Brad really messed up on this. So here's the lessons I can learn and put it into my business. That's what I want to do. I don't care about keeping my record spotless because let's face it, as imperfect humans, none of us are going to be able to achieve that. But now, more importantly, the reason I can't take it down is because this young lady has already demonstrated to me that she has no problems airing everything as public, sharing her side of the story, because there is now, for all eternity, well, until one of us dies, I guess, not to take too morbid a turn, but there is the possibility, long-standing possibility, that I get left a negative review. Like I said in that first video, one of the reasons I'm making this video is in case she comes back, in case the realtor comes back, in case the new homeowners come back and say, Brad was supposed to pick up my trash and he never did. He's a terrible company. Well, that's their side of the story. Here's the facts. Here's the figures. Here's the dates. Here's the emails on mine, and let you folks decide, which is all I've wanted from day one. That's what I feel like is fair. Because I can't rule that out, I've got to keep that video up. I completely understand the folks who said you should take this down, but those are the reasons why I'm going to be leaving it up. And I think long term, that's the better choice for everyone. Not necessarily the better choice for me personally. Yeah, that's that whole debacle now put behind us. Again, I would really like to thank a lot of you folks for your comments, even the ones who were, you just said, Brad, you're a jerk for this. A lot of thanks to the folks who went beyond that and said, I get where you're coming from. Maybe not, you're wrong. Maybe not, she tried to do something bad, but here's something else to consider. Those were the comments that I think made the most impact to me. And mainly because you folks were fairly polite, were very polite, I should say, but also that you took the time to type out those paragraphs that I read. And I believe I've read most, if not all of them, and responded to a lot of them. So thank you guys very much for that. Hopefully that addresses some of the potential concerns that you saw in that about my character. And if at the end of the day, the only thing that would make you happy is taking that video down, I completely understand if that was a straw that broke the camel's back and you're not interested in following along on the ride anymore. So now let's catch up with some of the numbers. We are going to cover 4 weeks of numbers, and I believe now we're only going to be 2 or 3 weeks behind real time. And if you'll remember, the last direct mail that I sent out for advertising, I want to say it was the end of August. For the week starting September 23rd, we only added 1 client and 1 can. Something new this week. Finally, the business is making enough money to pay for itself, so I'm going to incorporate the expenses that I have up until now been glossing over. So in addition to fuel of $28.54, the truck insurance payment for this week was around $192. Now, we have already paid for the truck insurance. We paid $10,000 for a year, and broken down among 52 weeks, it's about $192 a week. The truck payment, that varies from month to month. It ends up being around $900 a month. So 900 divided by 4, $225 a week. We still have the dump trailer. Right now, it's still down south doing disaster relief work, but that's fine. We have no use for it with the garbage truck. Even as a backup, it wouldn't make sense. We still do have the payment on it, and that's about $207 a week. The income on those cans, around $738, minus all those costs added up, left a profit of $84.66. Now that's getting closer to true profit. It still doesn't include all the business expenses, but it does include the big ones. Kendall and I worked this day from 5:24 a.m. to 11:36, so about 12 and a half man hours. Breaks down to $677 per hour when we consider the money left over after paying the bills. We dumped 3,460 pounds at the landfill, which would have cost us $51.90, but because it is a tri-county landfill and the county that we live in is part of that member agreement, they pick up the tab. The county government does, so we didn't have to pay that. Heading into the week of September 30th, this is the first week since we started this business in April or May that we haven't signed anyone up. So you could consider this the rock bottom. The advertising has completely dried up at this point. So we had pretty much all the same expenses and all the same income, which means we've had pretty much the same profit. I think we got done a little bit quicker this time. We worked from 5:05 to 11:10. When we quote those times, that's us pulling out of the driveway at 5:05 and then pulling back into the driveway and parking at 11:10. That's a little over 12 man hours, so just under $7 an hour. We dumped 3,240 pounds, which equates to $48.60 in dump fees. Now, the week of October 7th, we finally see a pretty good bump in clients and cans again. October the 11th is when we put out our first batch of, I think it was somewhere around 1,800 every door direct mails. And then from the 11th to the end of that week, we added 6 clients and 11 cans. So we had quite a few people who had multiples, and we even had one person who got 3. Again, our expenses this week were almost identical to the previous 2 weeks, but our income went up quite a bit, which meant we had $160 of profit left over. We worked from 4:50 a.m. to 11:18 a.m., which was around 13 man hours, which means we each made about $12.34 an hour. We dumped 3,160 pounds, which equals dump fees of $47.40. The week of October 14th, we added 6 clients and 8 cans. This was the week that pushed us over 100 cans. So if you don't know, we bought 200 cans starting this business out. We're finally getting down to where we have less than half of those cans sitting on a patio in the backyard waiting to go out to customers. And most of the cans that we have are now placed at people's residences out on the street. So that was a good milestone to hit. The folks that we added, we broadened the route out a little bit, so our fuel did tick up a bit. I think we burned maybe a third a gallon, half a gallon more than normal. But we made a whole lot more on all those new cans, so our profit was around $230 once we backed out our costs. We worked from 4:51 until 11:25, which again is about 13 man hours, and that netted us approximately $17.71 a man hour. We dumped 4,260 pounds, which equals $63.90 in dump fees. And one of the things that we're going to be looking at now at this stage is a second trip to the landfill to make sure we do things legally. At what point that's going to happen, we really don't know. And I probably won't discuss too much because I want to avoid any type of self-incrimination. At this point, go ahead and figure most likely we are having a strong possibility of pretty surely needing to make 2 landfill trips. And that's as vague as I'm going to keep it. And hopefully you can read between the lines. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, please be sure and leave them below. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one.